Hello, welcome to the Legacy Stories with Marija and Coua live.
I cannot wait to share my stories with you.
My name is Marija.
This is Coua.
I was born and raised in Bosnia until age of 19.
I am the firstborn of a refugee family that came to the United States in 1986.
I currently still live in US with my family.
I am so excited.
Welcome and enjoy. All right. Hi, everybody. This is Marija.
Hello, and this is Coua.
Yay.
We're back.
I know. And we're going to talk about parenting today.
So, such a good topic.
Tell us, Coua, what do you remember about being parented?
What do I remember about being parented? That is a loaded question, Marija. I was actually just talking to my oldest daughter about this. I don't know how this came up, but then I was telling her one of the bad things I did when I was in high school was I made a fake note to excuse myself from school that I was on a field trip. And I had my dad sign it. And I knew that he would sign it because he didn't know how to read English thoroughly. So I'm like, yeah, of course he's going to sign this and I'm going to turn it in to the school. And it worked. But then that's one of the memories that I think of when you ask the question, what was parenting like for you? That's what came up.
You remember making trouble because you knew how to use your, they would not. That's awesome.
Yes.
Oh,
what
God.
about for you? What's a memory you have?
Okay. I remember we had a lot of kids time, as in they would let us out in the morning. We would go out and play. And when you're hungry, you went home and then you went back to play again until they hollered hey, it's dinner time, get him back home.
Yeah. Yeah. I so resonate with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember in the summer times, I swear we're outside all day until dark and just playing with the neighbor kids, because the neighbor kids, they were Hmong too. And both the both parent sets are immigrants. So it's they didn't know any better. So we would just play. I mean, yes, it was just in our yard, in our neighborhood, but we were outside all day until dinner time, until dark.
Yeah, for us, it wasn't an issue, I think everybody kind of did it. Even I grew up from age 6 on, we were a little bit outside of the town. So I remember we were just kind of on a little hill above the town, and it wasn't even a big town. So but even the kids in the town, that's what they did. You would leave the house and you went and played, because everybody kind of knows everybody, right? Everybody knows what's happening. And I'm kind of a little nostalgic, right these days I look at the kids and I'm like, you can't kind of do that.
No. Right. I feel the same. And the question that was coming into my head was I wonder what our parents were thinking that that allowed them to allow us just to basically play all day, and we're just like kids. Do you know what I mean? I mean, the memory I'm thinking of, I was only in first grade, second grade. I don't know how old you were.
Goodness, it was before the war, so that's for sure. And then I remember even after the war, I was, fourth grade. I remember they let us play out and there was this forest. It was right after the war, so it was 95, 6. And there was a little chunk of trees right behind our house, and we had this tree that we had somehow we liked that tree. It was big, but it was at the beginning of the entrance, right? So we made it a house, and I loved climbing trees. Okay. As a mom, I would die, and I'm like, what do you mean you love climbing trees? But I climbed that tree, and I was the mom in the game.
Oh. Yeah.
And then the mom fell off the 3rd floor.
Oh.
And I remember falling And I'm like, I looked at my brother and the neighbor kid who was there, because like not all the kids were always there at the same time, right? Like whoever
Sure.
had something, whoever could play or wasn't doing anything was there. And I was like, don't tell my dad. Like, because here's the thing, you could fight with the other kids, you could be naughty, but you did not bring that stuff back home. Like, you had to be all nice and peaceful with your sibling and everybody when you left, or you
Yeah.
just were not allowed to mention it. Because then,
Yeah.
like, you got in trouble with other kids, but then you also, like, got in trouble from your parents. They're like, what do you mean you had a fight, right? Because, like,
Uh-huh.
so you did not mention it. So I'm like, do not tell my dad I did that, right?
Yeah.
Then I look at my leg and there's like blood. And here I'm me jumping up and being daddy. Like I was the first one to run. And it's like, and then we went back again. Because that's just, I think for my parents, it was, well, my mom, I remember they had to work a lot because it was a bigger family.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a lot of like animals and stuff. And I remember like the girls were like knitting like the little um not socks but like little foot coverings and stuff like that you wore in winter, and like the deep socks for winter from wool. And they were knitting and they were doing all sorts of like handiwork and making their like traditional outfits that they would
Sure.
wear. And they were
Yeah.
since little getting ready to get married and
Yeah.
creating their outfits and creating, but like, you know what I mean? And it was like they worked a lot since they were little. They had to work a lot. And I think
Yep.
for my parent, it was like it was a luxury to let us play. They did not have to make us work or
Yeah.
learn how to cook or do anything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, they just let us be kids, and I think they just like they loved that.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. I pictured everything that you're saying, them knitting and then the traditional clothing. And again, I just resonate so much with that because my mom and my maternal grandmother, they would sew the traditional outfits, Hmong outfits for us too. And I fondly remember my grandma sitting by a window with her glasses on and the needle, doing needlework. So
Yeah.
that totally brought back memories.
My mom says like when they were little, they had a lot of sheep, so they were gonna go take the sheeps out to the pasture,
Uh-huh.
and it wasn't really close. And I mean, these kids were like outside with the animals for like a whole day. Nobody was like really necessarily mentioning being scared or anything.
Yeah.
But she's like, you were not allowed to go outside, just like walk or whatever, or just like talk with other kids. Like you had to have some knitting stuff. Like you had to be like working always and something. And I'm like, I can like that's really a lot for a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So they started them young. So I think, yeah, but I can imagine. Did you learn any of it? Did you learn how to do any of the traditional work or no?
I learned how to make an X, but that's about it. And I probably can't even do that anymore now. And then, I mean, my grandma was also the one that taught me how to thread the needle through the loop. You know what I'm
Oh,
talking about with the pinpoint needle and has that like little hole. You have to thread the needle in it.
oh, that's
I
see.
know.
I remember my grandmother was see. My mom really did not want to teach me all that stuff when I was little. So
Mm-hmm.
when I was like a little bit older, I wanted to learn. So my grandmother taught me how to do it, and then of course I forgot because you have to keep doing that stuff.
Yeah. Yes.
And my grandmother still does it. She's in her 80s and she doesn't see well, but
Oh,
she knows in her head how to do it.
yeah. That's so cool.
It's interesting.
So tell me how did your parents' parenting affect you, or how does it show up for you today?
Okay. It shows up. Um, it's kind of interesting. I think they were advanced for
Mm-hmm.
the age and for the place, right? My
Mm-hmm.
mom was all about loving on us, not letting us do too much work, especially for the girls, which was
Mm-hmm.
huge. Like girls had to do a lot of work.
Yeah.
It was expected that we're neat, that we help, that we know how to make coffee, that we know how to start cooking.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, "No, time will come, right? Like you're gonna know how to do this stuff. Just study now. Just have fun now." So
Yeah.
in a way, like they were kind of like a little bit, not as strict. And I mean, I think a lot of people at that point in time were starting, but considering where it came from, it was huge. And also it was about education. And I
Yeah.
know I I did not get spanked as much. I remember kids getting spanked left and right, and I don't remember getting spanked
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
I remember being threatened that I'm gonna be spanked, but I wasn't really much.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Okay, I kind of feel like, there was always this policy, we trust you until you break our trust. So it wasn't like,
Mm,
oh, we're gonna have a talk and you're like, we're gonna like deal with the stuff before it even comes up. It was like, no, we
mhm.
trust you, you can do this. Especially when we got older, that was big. It's like, but then we'll deal with if you do something, then you break the trust, and then we'll put in the boundaries.
Yeah.
Did you have, like, when you were a teenager, were they setting up boundaries? How did they deal like with a teenager coming from where they did, like in the US?
Oh, I feel like that is like such a difficult question to answer because it depended on the child. So I think I told you I come from a family of 10. I'm one of 10. And the way that I grew up, like I was always obedient. I was that person that wanted to please. I was that child that wanted to follow the rules. I didn't want to get into trouble. But then I had siblings who were the opposite. So I feel like my parents, they didn't need to place really like rules for me per se, because I didn't want to do any of those things that I grew up learning as bad, right? And I learned that obviously from them. So in hindsight, it's almost like those were the rules, right? Like what they said, like this, if you do this, this, and this, that's bad. So then I just caught on to that and I didn't do any of that stuff.
Yeah, you wanted to be the good kid.
Yeah, that was that that was totally my childhood, wanting to be the good kid like at home, and then it showed up in school too. Like I want to be the good student.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it made it easy for them, I think.
Yes. Yes. So then like I think about that and it's like why, and then I compare that to my children, right? It's like, okay, child, why are you doing this? Because I think about myself at their age. I'm like, I don't think I was like that. I was a very obedient child, but why aren't you like this? But then that again, it's like, okay, that's like thanks to my parents too, right? Like because I saw how they were, it helped me determine how like I don't want to be. And so that then allows my child to really just be themselves. And for me as the adult to really, coach myself and maintain my thoughts in a helpful place.
But I think parenting and coaching are a totally different ball game, in the
100%.
sense that you have to unwind your own,
Hmm.
because there's this ideal what we want to do. Like there's an ideal how you want to parent, but because of the, not even how you were parented, but because of the culture that you
Hmm.
were parented in. For example, just having your siblings being parented differently and stuff. It's almost like you absorb a lot of stuff from that. And then like how your parenting is like, I find for me, it's like I know how I want to parent my kids,
Yeah.
but it's almost like this weird autopilot in my head where like I remember my grandmother, how she parented kids, and most closely, I resemble my grandmother.
Mm.
But I also admired my grandmother, right? Because I
Yeah.
think I absorbed a lot of stuff from her because I thought she's bloody cool. Being a little kid, I was standing there like, look at this tiny little lady. And like her kids were like, her sons were taller and everything. And she was like in charge. And they
Yeah.
had like, they were listening and they were big. They weren't like kids anymore. Obviously, I was born, so they weren't little kids.
Yeah.
But they were listening and it just blew my mind like how much authority she had. And now I'm like, I know how I want to parent my kids, but I'm like, I embody a little bit of my grandma. So it's like, hey, right? It's like, oh,
Oh,
right. Like, well, I guess I could like go down on their level and talk to them, right? Like, and I know they'll listen better. Yet that comes out
hmm.
because it's just there. It's just absorbed.
Yeah, like ingrained in you because you went through it. You physically experienced it.
Does your culture have the thing? I always am like, I knew when my mother looked at me, I was like, oh shit, like I'm in trouble. I didn't even know what it did, but like
Yeah.
if you go somewhere and she would just look at you across the room and it's like, oh, let's sit down. Like I don't know what I did or what I said, but
Mhm.
I'm in trouble. Like they had these looks where
Mm.
you knew they were never parenting us is in public, like which I think we parent here right now in public a lot.
Yeah.
Mostly because we never let our kids out of our sights. But they never did. They never said anything there. I think it was too embarrassing to parent. Like,
Yes.
but they
They,
had the look that was like, oh, oh, you really like now. I was like, what did I do? What did I say? I don't know. So it's like, I wonder if other people experience that.
I can't remember like the looks, but yeah, like I don't remember being parented in public.
Mm.
Like I always knew when we were in trouble because there would be yelling involved, and that the yelling definitely impacted me and how I parent.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I don't remember looks like at all. But yes, I know I always knew when like I was in trouble or like we as siblings were in trouble.
Mm. See, mine never culturally, I think majority of people, when I was growing up, they looked at like yelling a little bit like it was like kids were supposed to behave, right? You're supposed to have your kids behave
Hmm.
without the yelling, without the. It doesn't mean you didn't do it at home or something, or that they didn't
Yeah.
get spanked, but like it wasn't done in front of other people.
Yep.
But they knew how to give you the look in public, so you would stop doing that.
That's so good. I don't remember me having to
Yeah, but
experience
maybe the
that.
yelling part is like it's a different story. Like because
Yeah.
I will totally like yell at my kids right now, like when they're doing something. But because for me, like the part where it's messed up is like I don't like the look, so I will not do the look. But I'll be like, stop doing that right now. I have no issues to tell you to stop,
That's so
even a
good.
little bit louder, which I always think is kind of like we go opposite to our parents a little
Yeah.
bit.
But you think that's because it's like, I don't want to be like my parents, right? Because you received that and maybe that had an effect on you, a little bit of trauma, maybe. So it's like, ooh, that hurts. So I'm
I'm
not
like
gonna
a little
do
bit.
this to my child. And that's so funny because with the yelling, like I got yelled at. So it's like, oh, I don't want to yell at my kids. And then when I do yell, like it brings up all of the hurt, right? Like, shoot, why am I doing this? It happened to me. I don't want to be doing it to them.
Yeah, I remember being in high school and remembering, no, maybe not high school. It was earlier, maybe
Mhm.
like sixth, seventh grade. And whenever we did something, my dad would sit us down and talk to us. And me and my brother were like, can't we just get spanked like normal kids? Why does he has to like suffocate us? Because I think we were like entering puberty and we're just like, come on, man, just let us off. Like, let us go. We don't care what happens. But he was very wise, where he would sit down and explain it and explain the consequences. It was like it would be like a 2 hour conversation. Well, at least it was in my head.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just get it over with, man.
Yeah.
Get it over with. I remember that being like hating that. And but I can see the benefits now. So it's like some aspects you do want to be like them. But I just remember those looks were like yelling was probably scary for you and the looks were just like I'm like,
That's so funny that you say that about your dad because my dad, like he would lecture us too. And to me, that's the word that comes up like, oh my gosh, they're just lecturing me or like nagging. Like why? And it was always really long with my dad too. He's really long-winded and he like likes to over explain things. It's just like, oh my gosh, really? Again.
do you do that?
No, I try not to. Although, you know what? My daughter, she's always like, Mom, I know. So I
You're
probably
not
do
thinking
that.
you are, but it's possible that
Yeah.
she's perceiving it. And who knows,
Yes.
maybe our dad's talked for like 15 minutes and to us it was like forever.
Hours. Yeah, for sure. 100%.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. What else is coming up? Oh, so being in America now and being
Mhm.
parented by immigrant parents, looking at the society around you, like, what do you, what do you think? What are your thoughts on like
Mm.
how like this society as general parents compared how you were parented?
What's coming up is like, I remember when I was a kid thinking like, why can't I have parents like them? Like,
Mm.
oh, or like, why can't I be in their family? Because I knew like my family was different. Like my parents were different. It wasn't the norm. And when I was a kid, it's like I just wanted to fit in, right? Like I just want to be like everyone else. I don't want to be singled out. And I wanted a normal life. So like, I mean, my parents, they didn't ever come on field trips. I never brought in treats to school. Like those little things
Right.
that society like, had a big effect on me. And it, made me feel like I was missing out on something. Obviously, in hindsight now, it's like, no, I wasn't. I just had a different parenting experience. What about
Yeah.
for you?
Well, what I like is the fact that we were much more independent when I was growing up.
Hmm.
So you went to do your testing, for example, by yourself, and like your entrances for colleges, high schools, everything else, you were fairly independent.
Hmm.
Whenever there were sports, your parents did never come. Like when we did sports, it was like our thing, right? Like it was a kid thing.
Yeah.
Parents were never there. And to
Yeah.
be honest, it's a little like frustrating here with the amount of sports and parent involvement. I'm like, I don't want to use on my own Sunday. If you want to play sports, go play sports. But why do I have to drive you everywhere and be there? And my kids are not of that age yet, right? Because
Yeah.
they're still little. But I'm already like I love you, but do I have to come to every game? Like, it's almost like, do we have to be that much of cheerleaders? Like, you're doing the sport because you love it because you want to be a part of a team, not. It seems that as parenting, it's almost like, yeah, I know we want kids to feel loved and encouraged. It's like just like okay, and the amount of the involvement of some parents into their kids' schoolwork
Hmm.
is also boggling to me. My parents were like, don't fail and done. And when I was little, maybe somebody helped me a little bit,
Yeah.
but nobody was there standing above my head, making sure I
Same.
did my homework, making sure it's right.
Yeah.
No, you
Yeah.
did your homework to learn. Nobody was fixing you.
Right.
So it's just like the hilarity of it. Like it's like parents standing there and making sure their kids' homework is right, and like, but they're not learning if you're making sure it's right. Like it's not supposed to be A all the time. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, what I know not every person is like this. Obviously, there's different kind of parents, and obviously there's reason people do it. It's very competitive and everything else. But
Yeah.
for me, it's just like hell no. And then my kid starts kindergarten. I'm like, have you done your sight words? It's like, oh my god, it's rubbing off of on me, right? Like it's like you have to make sure they're like sat down and
Yeah.
done something.
Yes. I think there's like a healthy balance because, growing up, obviously my parents, they didn't know, they can't help me with math. They couldn't help me with anything. So it's like I really literally I had to know how to do it myself and find the resources myself to do everything. So it's like now it's like, yeah, I want to help my kid. I want to set them up. Like I don't really, and I think I do that definitely out of like protection. Like I don't want them to go through what I had to go through of just like having to literally survive on my own because my parents literally could not help me. If I had a question, they wouldn't know how to help.
Yeah, but didn't that make you more kind of in a way scrappy?
It did. It made me like it totally helped me, but it's like I don't want that experience for my child. Because it's like then it's I had to learn from a young age. It's almost like the fight to survive, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, and if it's like, if my parents didn't know to ask the teacher for help that I needed. So it's like, I'm the one that had to initiate that. Even from a young age. I remember in second grade, like I needed help with math and I'm the one that had to get the help with math. My parents didn't do anything in that situation.
Yeah.
And
You
now
kind
it's
of
like,
feel like you're alone in it.
yeah, yes.
Yeah.
And in that way, it's like, okay, just being in America and seeing, mainstream parenting, I'm just gonna call it, like that affected me in like a good way. Like when parents actually want to step in and give the child the support, because the child, maybe they don't have the voice yet. So it's like the parent is the voice. And I feel like that for me, that was what was missing in my childhood. I didn't feel like I had a strong parenting voice to like back me up, if that makes any sense. I mean, I know my parents were doing everything that they knew how to support me, like financially. Obviously they provided transportation, they provided my clothes, they provided house, which is what they knew.
Yeah. But I think the difference is you grew up in an environment where kids were helped by parents.
Yeah.
I grew up in an environment where parents did not meddle with kids. Like the only thing that parents meddled with kids when we were growing up is like certain parents expected certain kids to have certain grades, to be the best and to always have the best grade. And that did not mean that they helped them. They were just really strict about having those
That
grades
expectation
and
was just set.
making sure that like they had good grades,
Yeah.
being on them, but like not really actually helping them. Because
Yeah.
it's different. So like it's just like it seems like it's a totally different environment. And again, it's like it's different when you're thinking about stuff. I remember before I was a parent, I was just like, you knew everything about parenting. Like it's like almost like, yeah, I knew everything tech, but then you have kids and it's like you have your emotions and your experiences and it's all intermingled.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I never thought I would want to do that. And then it's like,
Right.
actually, yeah, I do want to mess up and to learn to mess up
Right.
and to learn from it, but I will not let him do whatever he wants at the age of 6, right? Like I'll be like, okay, buddy, time to do your homework.
Yes.
So you build the habit. I don't
Yeah.
have to sit there and make sure that all the homework is done
Same.
right. I don't
Yep.
have to check it and be like, oh no, this is wrong, honey. Right?
Yeah.
Like do that.
Absolutely.
We can have some, as you said, balance.
Yeah. Totally agree with that. I have a third grader and she like surprises me because she actually doesn't like school and she expresses that all the time. But she's such a good learner because she absorbs everything. And yesterday when I was taking them to school, she always knows when she has homework and when it's due. So then on the ride to school yesterday, she was doing her math homework. I'm like, oh, she's doing homework in the morning on the way to school. It wasn't even due yet. It was not due that day. It was due the next day, but she was doing it. So I'm like, oh, yay, yay. Something good is happening here where she understands like a little bit of responsibility. I feel like third grade is a really good grade to, really act out on what you're responsible for. And I love that she's showing those signs of independence that I know what I have to do, mom, and I'm going to do it.
That's awesome. Yeah. But I'm like, did you like school? Do you remember if you liked school or not?
I did like school. I was one of those people that liked school. I
still love school.
How about you? Did you?
I loved school.
Yeah, I like school too. I even
I was
didn't
not the
mind.
A student. I was not the A student. My mechanism was I was a good kid and I always got decent grade, but I was not like one of those kids who had perfect grade all the time. Actually,
Yeah.
I like for a really long time I had like that C level where I
Mhm.
didn't have to try hard to get a C.
You
But then
still
I was
passed.
jealous of my brother who was like your like your daughter, who would
Yeah.
just like sit there, absorb it all and like not try at all and get the same grade. And I'm like, come on. Right? Like you really did not have to do anything, right?
Oh, that's
So
so funny.
yeah, but no, it's cool.
Yeah, it is
Maybe
cool.
next week we talk about education since we jumped into school.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I could go on and on about school, like how I see it in me and then seeing it through my children's eyes. And then obviously the parenting had an effect on me and how I viewed school. Like it was always an expectation that, hey, you're going to school, you're going to graduate from high school, then you're going to go to college. Like that was always the expectation for my dad. And that obviously I followed that expectation because, like I said before, I'm a rule follower. I do as I'm told.
But also like it kind of it imprints in your brain. It's not like you have to do this, but they repeat it, and it's kind of like an expected thing
Yeah.
for me. It wasn't pressure for me, but it was just like, oh, this is totally happening.
Yes.
And it was I also remember my dad and like family members that they had that
Uh-huh.
were not in great marriages, and they could not leave because it's like you have to be able to have your money and make your money, and then you can do whatever you want, right? You can spend it how you want, and you can be independent, and you don't have to be like, you know what I mean? Because these things would happen, and my dad's like, see what's happening with this person over here? Like, she has no choice. She has to stay, whether
Oh
she
my,
likes the situation or not.
yeah.
Yeah, no, my dad was
That's
very,
the same in my
I mean,
culture.
my
That
dad
is
is
the
still very
same.
much,
Oh my gosh.
right?
Yeah. That's so interesting. So,
Yeah,
so
never left
interesting.
what corner of the world, but it seems like the generations kind of like overlap,
They
doesn't it?
line up almost. Yeah. Agree. Whereas now it's like, no, it's your choice. You can
Yeah,
leave if you want to.
but it depends on the country still, because
Mm,
there's still
mm,
countries in the world
yeah.
where if you don't have the actual education and you're not able to support yourself, women still can't leave.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, for my belief, even though my parents had that belief and they still do, like, that's still very apparent to me. Like, I didn't latch onto that at all.
Mm,
Like, no, like, why should someone have to stay if they don't want to stay anymore? And I even
yeah,
think that my dad is even a little bit more forward thinking in that aspect than my mom is. Like, he would be way more supportive of like a divorce than my mom is, which is very interesting to me. Like, I wonder like what the dynamic is there.
yeah. Mine are uh, that way too. I think
Hmm.
they're more. They would be. For example, if somebody told my grandmother one of her kids are getting divorced, she would like. I think the words were hang herself as it's such an embarrassment, she would not be able to live. Like it doesn't really mean she would, but like
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
that
yeah.
embarrassment, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly. But it's like I don't think my parents are there. But the point that my dad was making, it's like you need to be able to be independent. So if you wanna leave, you can leave, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
don't depend on anybody.
Yeah.
Get a diploma, get something, so you have your own money. And if you need to leave, you can leave.
Hmm.
So you don't have to stay just
Yeah.
because you don't have money or income or a job.
Yeah, because you feel like you're tied to that person because they provide the money or they meet your needs somehow. That's such sound advice.
I know they have some good nuggets,
Smart
don't
man. I know they do. Our parents do have some good things to tell us.
they? Yeah, it's good. All right, cool. Do you have a last question?
Ah,
Should
no,
we end?
this has been a very wholesome conversation and fun. I can't wait for next week.
I know. I'm like I have 3 boys, so I'm just
Mhm.
excited to see how am I going to like with all this new world that like we grew up in a fairly homogeneous culture back home. I
Yeah.
mean, if you put aside 3 religions and nationalities, like as far as like um everything else, it was mostly homogeneous environment that I grew up in.
Mm,
So I'm curious how I'm gonna raise 3 boys in this new world where like you're a little bit of a feminist and you're a little bit for everybody
yeah.
having the right to do everything that you and
Yes.
like like this is gonna be an experience. I see why it's hard for parents because they've never experienced that before, right? Like it's like
Right.
this is them learning too as they're trying to teach their kids. So I'm just like, this is going to be exciting.
It is. It's such an exciting time. And when you're talking about homogeneous, like patriarchy came up for me. Cause like me growing up, it was so patriarchal. And yes, it actually still is now, but it's like, that's my work. Like I get to break that down for my kids. And it's like so rewarding, so fun, and yeah, so hard at the same time too. But I'm here for it.
All right.
Okay.
All right. This is amazing. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.